Thank you. Good evening and welcome to a significant Mahone Bay Town Council meeting. Tonight, we'll be having the final meet of the council that has been here from 2016 until tonight. And we'll welcome our new council's members who will be with us from 2020 until 2024. So it is a rather important evening. And I'd like to begin by saying that we express our deep thanks to the Mi'kmaq people. We are gathered in traditional lands of the Mi'kma'ki, and we are indeed grateful for that. You have an agenda, councilors, that was emailed out to you. Entertain a motion to approve or amend the agenda. Councilor O'Neill?
Mayor, I move that the agenda be approved as presented.
Thank you.
Seconded, Your Worship.
Seconded by Deputy Mayor Noss. All in favor? Motion's carried. Let's go to the first item on that agenda, the minutes of the regular meeting of October 3rd. Councilor Bain silently moves that they be approved. Seconded
second
by
that, Your
Councilor Carver. Thank you. All in favor? Motion is carried. The minutes are approved as presented. Item number 3 is for us to recognize the outgoing council. Councilor O'Neill has been with us just for 2 years. She came in on a by-election a couple of years ago, and she had in that very brief period of a large impact on the council, participating in every discussion. Her research skills were something that would put fear into a lot of people because she would come up with background and information and notions that often carried the day. And it was because of her research skills that we were able to do that. Colleen, I personally appreciate having you on council. I hate to see you leave council, and I wish you the best of luck in your job with the town of Bridgewater. I'm sure everybody will have electricity soon.
Mayor, thank you. If I may, that is very kind. I have very much enjoyed my tenure on council, and I will be sad to discontinue spending time with this wonderful group of people, and I wish the new council well. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you. Councillor Bain, our senior senator from Hawthorne Hill. John, you've been on council. This is you're finishing your 4th term,
That's correct.
I think. Yeah, 16 years.
Mhm.
Been on just about every committee. Been involved with heated discussions over all the major issues. Participated in the NSFM conferences and represented the town at a number of different venues. Again, we will miss, in particular, your counsel and your guidance and the common sense attitude you bring to council, especially when we're talking about ducks. John, of course, is a retired from Ducks Unlimited as one of their senior managers before he came to Mahone Bay and luckily came to council. So John, thank you for your time here, and I wish you luck in your retirement.
Thank you very much, Mayor Davini. I've certainly enjoyed the last 16 years, and I certainly welcome the new council. It's nice to see some new faces around the table, and I guess my ongoing mantra is that when I look at the great turnout we had from the public, it is an indication that we're truly councillors at large representing the whole town of Mahone Bay, not just some of our friends that maybe encouraged us to run and that sort of thing. But I'm sure you'll enjoy being on council every bit as much as I have. And all of the councils I've been in have been great to work with, and I'm sure that will continue. Thank you.
Thank you, John. And of course, the old man on the mountain, the deputy mayor, Carl, has been on council for 28 years. You have to wonder, did he not have anything else to do with his life? But he stayed with it for 28 years. He was on council back when councillors actually ran the work centers. And Carl's was the Public Works Department. And every morning, Carl would come down and give out the assignments for the day and monitor the work that the people in Public Works were doing. A long and illustrious career. Just the other day, we had an area meeting. Area is the electric company that we use to run the wind farms. And there were a number of comments on Carl's participation with Area and the fact that Carl was one of the 3 people that had the idea and started the whole wind farm project, he and Joe Feeney Sr., many years ago. And the town is truly benefiting today. And as we look to the future, we're going to benefit even more by the work that Carl has done and his commitment. And when there was a discussion about a citizen's property, Carl used to play on it when he was a kid, or he plumbed the house when he was a working person. But he knew something about every house and every family then in the town. Our demographic is changing, but one by one, Carl picks them off and gets to meet those people. Carl, I thank you for your service in particular. I have really enjoyed having the chance to work with you. And I hope that in the future, if we need a little bit of advice or guidance or, where's the water valve, we can come and talk to you. Thank you, Carl.
You sure can come and talk to me. It's been a great ride. Little emotional.
Yeah, I'm sure.
I want to thank all the previous councils that I worked with. It's been great. They all love the town and they all work hard for the town. I know this council will do the same thing. I want to thank the outgoing councils and the council today for their hard work. It was a great last 4 years of all councils were, and the leadership I worked under, Mayor Ullman, Joe Feeney for many years, and now under your leadership. You guys do a great job controlling us. And sometimes we get a little silly, but I want to thank staff. Dylan, so great that you would move back to Mahone Bay. You're doing a fabulous job. Mo, Kelly, Kim, Crystal, Luke, Eric, and the Public Works boys and our electrical department. We're a small band of employees, but boy, they make us look good sometimes. I want to thank staff for that, and thank you very much.
Thank you for those words, Carl. Well, council, a little round of applause for the outgoing councilors, maybe? Indeed. And with that, I would ask for a motion to adjourn this meeting, and we're going to come right back with the next iteration of Mahone Bay Town Council.
Move to adjourn, Mayor.
Thank you. Seconder,
Seconded.
all in favor? We are adjourned. Ba-doom. Thank you to our outgoing council members.
Thank you all very much.
Now, let's call the meeting of the Mahone Bay Town Council for 2020 to 2024 to order. You have an agenda, 3 old councilors and 3 new councilors, that was emailed to you. Appreciate a motion to approve the agenda or amend it.
So moved, Your Worship.
And second that motion.
Thank you. Clerk, did you have a comment?
Yes, Your Worship, we should start with the swearing in.
Oh, let's have vote on the motion to accept the agenda. Okay. Let's go to our swearing in ceremony. Okay. The clerk is now going to give us a report on the elections that occurred earlier in October. Over to you, Madam Clerk.
Thank you, Your Worship. So there is a full report on the agenda later on, but the 2020 municipal and school board election was held on October 17th, 2020. At that time, for the office of mayor, David Devaney was acclaimed. There were 7 candidates for 6 seats on council to be elected at large. Alice Burdick received 377 votes and was elected. Penny Carver received 459 votes and was elected. Aaron M. Collery received 157 votes. Joseph Maxwell Feeney received 384 votes and was elected. Francis Kangata received 482 votes and was elected. Richard Now received 352 votes and was elected. And Kelly Wilson received 439 votes and was elected. The board representative position on the CSAP was acclaimed for Diane Reset. So now I would like to ask each member of council, of our newly elected council, to, I will call on you one by one to complete your oath of office. You have all had the opportunity to read this, and what we'll do is we'll ask you to read it out loud for your official swearing in. This is something that many municipalities are doing this year with the COVID lockdown. We have meeting limits, gathering limits, and this way at least your families can participate rather than us finding a big enough space for the council meeting and then nobody gets to see. So I will call Mayor-elect David Devaney. Would you please provide your oath of allegiance and of office, please?
Good idea. I, David Devaney, solemnly affirm that I will be faithful and bear true allegiance to Her Majesty Queen Elizabeth II, her heirs and successors according to law. That I am duly qualified as required by law for the office of mayor of the town of Mahone Bay, and that I will truly, faithfully, and impartially execute the duties of the office to which I have been acclaimed to the best of my knowledge and ability. And that I have not received and will not receive any payment or reward or promise thereof for the exercise of any partiality or other undue execution of the duties of my office.
Thank you, Mayor Devaney. Francis Kangata. Oh, Francis, you're on mute.
Sorry, I was talking to myself. I, Francis Kangata, solemnly affirm that I will be faithful and bear true allegiance to Her Majesty the Queen Elizabeth II, her heirs and successors, according to the law, and that I am duly qualified as required by the law for the office of Deputy Mayor of the town of Mahone Bay, Council of the town of Mahone Bay, and that I will truly, faithfully, and impartially execute the duties of the office to which I have been elected to the best of my knowledge and ability, and that I have not received and will not receive any payment or reward or promise thereof for the exercise of any partiality or other undue execution of the duties of my office. Thanks.
Thank you, Francis.
Thank you, Francis.
Alice Burdick.
Thank you. I, Alice Burdick, swear that I will be faithful and bear true allegiance to Her Majesty Queen Elizabeth II, her heirs and successors according to law, and that I am duly qualified as required by law for the office of Councillor of the Town of Mahone Bay, and that I will truly, faithfully, and impartially execute the duties of the office to which I have been elected to the best of my knowledge and ability, and that I have not received and I will not receive any payment or reward or promise thereof for the exercise of any partiality or other undue execution of the duties of my office. Thank you.
Thank you, Alice. Penny Carver.
I, Penny Carver, solemnly affirm that I will be faithful and bear true allegiance to Her Majesty Queen Elizabeth II, her heirs and successors according to law, and that I am duly qualified as required by law for the office of Councillor of the Town of Mahone Bay of Nova Scotia, and that I will truly, faithfully, and impartially execute the duties of the office to which I have been elected to the best of my knowledge and ability, and that I have not received and will not receive any payment or reward or promise thereof for the exercise of any partiality or other undue execution of the duties of my office. Thank you.
Thank you, Penny. Joe Feeney.
I, Joseph Maxwell Feeney, solemnly affirm that I will be faithful and bear true allegiance to Her Majesty Queen Elizabeth II, her heirs and successors according to the law, and that I'm duly qualified as required by law for the office of Councillor of the Town of Mahone Bay, and that I will truly, faithfully, and impartially execute the duties of the office to which I've been elected to the best of my knowledge and ability, and that I've not received and will not receive any payment or reward or promise thereof for the exercise of any partiality or any undue execution of the duties of my office. Thank you.
Thank you, Joe. Richard Now.
I, Richard Now, swear that I will faithfully and bear true allegiance to Her Majesty Queen Elizabeth II, her heirs and successors according to law, and that I am duly qualified as required by law for the office of Councillor of the Town of Mahone Bay, and that I will truly, faithfully, and impartially execute the duties of the office to which I have been elected to the best of my knowledge and ability, and that I have not received and will not receive any payment or reward or promise thereof for the exercise of any partiality or other undue execution of the duties of my office. Thank you.
Thank you. And Kelly Wilson, please.
Thank you. I, Kelly Wilson, solemnly affirm that I will be faithful and bear true allegiance to Her Majesty Queen Elizabeth II, her heirs and successors according to law, and that I am duly qualified as required by law for the office of Councillor of the Town of Mahone Bay, and that I will truly, faithfully, and impartially execute the duties of the office to which I have been elected to the best of my knowledge and ability, and that I have not received and will not receive any payment or reward or promise thereof for the exercise of any partiality or other undue execution of the duties of my office.
Thank you very much. And with that, Your Worship, the 2020 Town Council has been sworn in.
Thank you, Clerk. Thank you, 2020-2024 Council, very much for this participation. For the citizens of the Town of Mahone Bay, these are the 6 people who will speak for you for the next 4 years. We are all elected at large. We all speak and consider all of the citizens in the town equally. I'm sure I would encourage all of you, if you have a question or you just want to step up and meet your new councilors, please don't hesitate to do that. And according to town policy, the councilor who achieves the most votes in the election by town policy is appointed deputy mayor of the town. The thought being that if, God forbid, something should happen to the mayor, then the person who will take over as the deputy mayor is the one that the citizens chose by giving that individual the most votes. And that is Francis Kangata. Francis, as the mayor of the Mahone Bay, I would appoint you as the deputy mayor. And if someone would like to make a motion just to make it sound official, appreciate a motion from the floor to appoint Francis Kangata as your deputy mayor.
So moved, your
Moved by
worship.
And seconded by Kelly Wilson. All in favor? It's unanimous. Francis, welcome as our deputy mayor.
Thank you.
Okay, now, sorry, somebody have a comment? No? Now we can have that motion to approve the agenda as presented.
So moved, your worship.
Moved, seconded by Alice Burdick. All in favor? Motion's carried. You have the agenda that we're going to work on. Okay. There are no delegations or individuals. So let's go right to correspondence for action items. In particular, we have a request to fly the transgender flag. I think it's on Friday. Clerk, will you speak to that issue or?
I don't mind, happy to jump in here,
CEO?
Mr. Mayor. So under our flag policy, which was adopted last year, the town makes it clear that we require a request to council to fly a flag on an annual basis in recognition of an event. This one is a request for the Transgender Day of Remembrance, which is coming up on the 20th, the Friday after this one. And therefore, in accordance with that policy, this request is put in front of council for approval, and thereafter, for the next 4 years, would not require annual approval.
Okay. So, council? Councilor Feeney?
Mayor, I know this is late breaking news due to COVID and obviously the extended the duration between our last council meeting due to the municipal election. So I don't think that the request can meet the policy's request due to the 30-day limit, but I think that the council, I'd move that the council provide a variance to that clause and provide permission to fly the flag on November 20th.
Okay. We have a motion. Seconded, Councilor Carver?
Second it.
Okay. Moved and seconded that the flag representing the Transgender Day of Remembrance will be flown by the town on Friday, November 20th, 2020.
So before we vote, I'd just like to comment, the letter asked for a proclamation and a flag raising. I believe that we have a policy about proclamations. Maureen has her hand up, so.
Yes, as you noted, we do have a policy that states the town of Mahone Bay does not make proclamations. So when this correspondence was received, I did advise that the town of Mahone Bay does not make proclamations, but the request for the flag was, I was asked to continue to put that forward for council.
Thank you for the clarification. Just wanted to be sure that that wasn't sort of part of it. Thank you.
Thank you, Penny. Alice, did you have a comment?
Yeah, I was just going to mention that it is, and I think that came up in the letter, but it's Transgender Awareness Week. So it is timely for sure, even if it's next week. And it's just a really good way to raise visibility and recognize the issues faced by, in particular, rural transgender folks. So I'm all in agreement.
Thank you. You have a motion? All in favor? Motion is carried. Thank you. Let's go to the next item. Oh, we have correspondence. What is the wish of council?
Mayor, I'd move that we receive the correspondence and file.
Move to receive and file. Councillor Carver, seconding?
I can second the motion, but I have a couple of questions about items that were included in the correspondence. So I
Certainly.
seconded the motion, and I would like to ask about number 5.1, the item about the lawn service awards. And I'm just curious that our Councillor John Bain was not listed in the 16-year section.
John Bain was recognized last year in his 15th year.
Oh, he got it last year. Okay, sorry. Good for you, John. And my second question was around item 5.3, the announcement from Micah about the property that they've acquired in conjunction with Modal. The letter included as a comment about requesting a $1,000 donation. So it was a little bit encompassed in other things, but it was part of the letter that there was a request for a $1,000 donation. Is that actionable, or are we just going to say very nice, very nice?
CAO?
Well, I just wanted to comment that in accordance with the grants to organizations policy, it would be appropriate to, as we did last year, write back to this organization and inform them that they can put that through as a request for the donation as part of our annual program.
Which
Thank
would
you.
see
So we
them
do-
submit that in March, I
Do you
believe.
need a motion to that effect?
It wouldn't be a bad idea, Penny, if you want to make a motion.
I will make a motion that a letter be written to Micah and with the advice that they should put in a request before the next year's budget process.
Seconder? Francis seconds it. Deputy Mayor? On the question? All in favor? Motion's carried. Thank you. Councillor Carver, did you have another piece that you wanted to raise on that correspondence?
No, those were my two questions, but we have them, not still the motion to receive and file.
That's right. That's right.
I'm
Okay,
done.
you've heard the motion, you've heard the questions. All in favor? Motion's carried. I think Councillor Feeney inherited a job from the Deputy Mayor Noss tonight.
It's short and sweet job, at least.
For those of you that may not be aware, that was one of Deputy Mayor Noss's standard reactions when we came to the information items. He would move to receive and file the paperwork. Okay, thank you. Let's go to number 6. Our ever enlarging and important staff report. CAO.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So for tonight, what we've got is a staff report. The staff report is on every council agenda and items are updated as we go. Just a couple of things to introduce the report. On the first meeting of each month, we only update the first section, council assignments to staff. Essentially, the idea was that council would like to have a monthly update across the board on capital projects and other items, but we just use the same format and update the first section. So happy to take any questions on the report. I'll put it up on the screen if there are any questions. And with the new counselors, I just want to stress that as we go through orientation, being new to this report, there will be an opportunity to talk about the efficacy of it and opportunities for improvement. It is a living document intended to make sure the council has a quick reference for various town projects. So with that being said, I won't put it on the screen if there aren't any questions, but if there are any questions, especially concerning the section council assignments to staff, please go ahead.
Councillor Carver. You're on mute.
Yeah. I'm sorry. I'm just enlarging my screen over here so I can read. But I have a question about that section, item 2, the council to revisit its commitment to the use of the current 3 diamonds designs as the corporate logo. following the community branding public engagement component of the wayfinding project and the community vision public engagement component of the plan review. I wonder if Mr. Hyde could just sort of speak to the steps that will be followed for us to get to the point where council will revisit the commitment, how that will actually unfold.
Yeah, absolutely. So as it's indicated there, our expectation is that this will be complete in terms of meeting the conditions of council's original motion in January. So in the meantime, between now and then, as it notes, there's two things to take place. We're at the end of the first phase of Plan Mahone Bay, and there will be a steering committee meeting for Plan Mahone Bay coming up in the next probably 3 or 4 weeks. At which time I expect a presentation on the first phase of the project. And I expect at that time that they will report on the community branding, or sorry, the community visioning component of that project. And on the wayfinding side, as it notes there, expectation of a report later in November from the town chamber project team, and that report will be providing council with and the chamber board with wayfinding signage drafts. So when those two requirements have been completed, then in January staff will provide council with a report that lays out, you know, the results of those two processes, and provides council with an opportunity to revisit consideration of town logo, whether the current logo is doing its job, and particularly in light of those two major processes and the engagement that's been involved in them.
Will there be a specific question raised about the logo during those processes?
Not as such. The intention was that because at the time when the logo was being discussed and this motion was made in the spring, there was a lot of a lack of clarity around how the wayfinding signage would interact with the town logo. And I think that report, when it is forthcoming later this month, will certainly clarify that for anybody. With respect to the community vision, that spoke to the question of is the logo adequately representing the municipality? So this community vision could be used as a beginning point to public consultation concerning a potential logo, but that's at the council's discretion in January. I wouldn't prejudge that process.
So in the meantime, we have the new the Three Diamonds logo on corporate letterhead, and we're still flying the old flag.
No, we no longer use the previous logo for any purposes at this point.
For anything.
That's correct.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Did you have any other questions, Benny?
I have other questions about other parts of the report, but I could wait till next time. I could ask them now because this is a small agenda tonight, but.
That's up to you. I've got it on the screen, but I can put it away if you have other questions. Let me know.
If you don't mind, I'd like to just follow up on a question that Councillor Penny had asked about the logo and the process.
Sure.
What I was curious about is there any community input around the logo that's expected going forward?
Well, that really is council's discussion in January. So
okay.
The previous council's direction was that it would be appropriate for council to consider whether the logo subject would be revisited and how and what process would be followed at such a time as the Plan Mahone Bay process and the wayfinding signage were met the conditions that were described in this motion. So we'll have that conversation in January.
Okay.
Councillor Feeney.
So just to make sure we're all on the same page. So our intent is to use the community visioning component of the Plan Mahone Bay initiative to really get to the heart of this matter. And that we expect that will happen in the first 3 months of 2021. That's sort of timeline. Does that sound about right, Dylan? That's our vehicle. The
Yeah, I
vision.
can only, the motion was made, so I can only interpret it to such an extent, and obviously it's council's discretion what is going to be done at that time. But when you would go out for design of a logo, in a community-driven process, development of a vision that would then be supplied to a designer, could be a potential starting place. So it's my understanding here is that because we are going through a significant process with public input to get to a vision, that might be a starting place for a process for logo design with a new contractor who would have to be hired. So that would be a council's discretion as a good starting place for a process around the logo. Again, I don't think it's prescriptive that council is required to initiate that process. I think this council will want to consider whether that is the right thing to do at that time.
Okay. Anyone else on that issue? Okay, thank you. Any other questions for CAO on the report? Councillor Kerr.
If I may just take this opportunity when there is a smaller agenda rather than throwing all my usual questions at the next agenda. Under the service statistics, again, could you explain again, Dylan, about why there is no parking enforcement happening during COVID? I just have lost the rationale for that.
Yeah, absolutely. I guess I think it's I know it was stated there, and this hasn't been updated since the question was asked previously, so no change in the wording. I'm going to go through the answer the same as last time. So what was stated here is that there's no parking enforcement. That is not the case. If we have a call with respect to a specific parking violation where we have regular bylaw hours, what was happening was last summer during major events, busy weekends, we were doing some proactive parking enforcement, which meant that Al, our bylaw enforcement officer, was walking the beat, as it were, doing public education enforcement and issuing some tickets. We're not putting a focus on those hours. As you know, Al's been working on dangerous and unsightly property file, particular focus this fall, and it has a very limited amount of hours. So we just shifted the hours away, essentially because of the less amount of traffic, activity in the downtown, and to avoid putting Al in that situation where he was confronting people who, in light of the pandemic, may feel off-put in that situation. So it's just the use of resources issue and just consciousness around the current context.
Thank you.
And sorry, I think the sentence was just a bit short, but we haven't amended this report since last time.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay. Penny, any other questions or?
No, I'm done, thank you.
Okay, Francis? Deputy Mayor, sorry, Francis, Deputy Mayor.
I'm okay with Francis. I just wanted to follow up on the issue around the transportation plan that was supposed to. I think you're supposed to check with TIR about some things. One thing that I don't have the detail of it, but what I was curious is that and there are things in there that could be actioned without waiting, and maybe if you can just maybe give a brief as to why there's a wait, because that's a question that as I was going around kept coming up. Why aren't things moving on that piece?
Yeah, I'm happy to speak to that. Yeah, it really, the delay in implementation of the council's 2020 project doesn't have anything to do with the request to TIR. I mean, essentially, we're informing TIR of our plans within the town and working with TIR for their support when it comes to their jurisdiction. So there were some recommendations in the transportation plan that did include the approaches to town, for example. Yeah, I mean, the delay in implementation has been one of funding. Council approved a project estimated $160,000 approximately, and applied for an approximately $100,000 of that from Department of Energy under the Connect 2 program, which supports active transportation upgrades, pedestrian upgrades. So it's our understanding that you know, I know I said this at the last meeting, but isn't essentially an any day now kind of confirmation. But if we do proceed with the project without the funding confirmation, then we will not be able to cost share on any funds expended. So in consideration of the town's ambitious capital projects, we're just holding off until we're able to ensure the maximum external contribution. At our last meeting, I think we did talk about, are there some items that could be moved forward more quickly than others? And I think that is the case. I'm quite optimistic that we will still hear. Obviously, the weather is not going to hold much longer, and some of these will be difficult to accomplish this year. And I certainly think that's unfortunate, and just you know, an unfortunate side effect of dependence on external funding in this case.
CAO, do you have a list of the quick hits that we might consider in spite of not getting the funding from an external source? You know, I would suggest the more important bits and pieces that could be done out of our own bank account.
Yeah, I wouldn't prioritize the components of the project on the basis of importance, although I may come back and ask council to have to consider that, but just on the basis of the speed in which the ease of which they could be implemented. The one-way street for Cherry Lane and the crosswalks, you know, as long as we have weather to paint and install signage, we should be able to complete those improvements. The traffic calming measures, anything having to do with Kinburn and Claremont, likely to end up happening in the spring, would be my expectation. The intersection of Main and Clearway Street, obviously I know it's a priority. It does require engineering design, so we have the engineers on standby. CBCL's done the work to date. We can certainly get that done as quickly as possible. But there is some question as to whether that will be able, you know, weather permitting, to be implemented this fall.
Okay, Councillor Feeney.
Mayor, I think we're on the right track with the transportation plan. I fully support, deferring 60, 90, 120 days, several months until we get clarification of the external funding. That seems quite logical. And, that's generally how we've acted in our own personal best interest, I think. So it pays to be patient. I do think that the Asset Management Committee and our communications team put together an elegant, one-pager on our proposed changes that I think we've seen. And it probably makes sense for us to continue to, to provide that document or something similar to that to the community to reemphasize the council has made a few decisions. Cherry Lane one way, for example. And that although we haven't gone through the process and made that change yet, it's pending. And there's probably, I think, as the CAO mentioned, a requirement to have some education, so by the way, this is now a one-way street. So that document, it might absolutely be worth our while to reissue that again. It was very well done, I thought. But you know how they come in the mail and you lose track of where you put it and it's no longer here. So I think because it's such a topical item, it might make sense for us to put that out in the mail again.
If I might say, I think the timing of that, apologies, that's some feedback. I think the timing of that is actually very good. Councillor Feeney, we have Municipal Awareness Week, as you council members know, coming up. And we do a special feature having to do with the town and our services and infrastructure during that week. So perhaps an opportunity to include that feature. So Maureen and I would certainly look at that.
CAO, you and the clerk have been very busy working on the orientation program for the new counselors. Are those one-pagers that were produced by or for the Asset Management Committee part of that program?
Yes, so that asset management primer will be released to council just at the beginning of Municipal Awareness Week, and then will also be released to the public beginning in Municipal Awareness Week this year. So definitely it is intended to be part of the orientation package, and we're just trying to do some improvements to the readability of the fonts and whatnot, which was the last item that was discussed by council.
Yeah, thank you. Councillor Carver.
I do have one more question, if I may. Dylan, it's on the staff report in the section on 2020-2021 capital projects. Number 5, resurface the fire station parking lot at $90,000. So I was just confused about why that's necessary, given that there's a whole reconstruction or new building project going on for the fire station. Could you clarify that?
I mean, it really isn't going to be a separate project from the rest of the fire station project, but it could have been. The new station doesn't require the rest of the parking lot to be redone, but if you've been there in that parking lot at any point, while they're doing the new parking surface, we'll have the old parking surface resurfaced as well.
So what's the status of that $90,000? Is it already spent, as it were, or is it freed up, given that there's a whole other envelope for the new fire station?
So there is an additional paving cost to finishing that parking lot above and beyond the requirements of the new station. I think it will be less than the budgeted amount.
Okay. Councillor Wilson.
Thank you, Your Worship. Councillor Carver brings up an issue that I was going to leave till later, but I have had several requests that since the new fire hall is going where it is, and it's a bit disruptive, more than a bit disruptive to the parking for the tennis people, that we consider doing something in terms of refinishing the parking lot that was built about 5 years ago now, I guess, behind the tennis court. Currently, it's finished in 4-inch stone, and nobody will drive on it because of their tires. So I think we need to think about that.
Maybe that would be a possibility if we come in under on the paving of the front part of the lot. So that's a great thing to consider. I'll make a note about that.
Possibility. Any other comments for the CAO? Councillor Now.
Yeah, I just think we're discussing the parking at the current fire hall. And I think that it's important to keep that maintained, especially since the fire department is still using that as their bingo site and using it for fundraising. So I think it's important that that still be maintained if possible.
Yeah, it definitely will be. And we're looking forward to getting that parking area fixed up. And I've certainly been in there quite a bit with this project, as I know many of you have. And if you go up there at all, it draws attention to the need. I don't think it's had any attention since I was biking to the pool as a small child.
There you go. Anyone else? Okay, thank you, CAO. Clerk, I look forward to these reports in the future. We've come a long way with these documents from the back of a cigarette package kind of report we had 3 or 4 years ago. They tend to be large with lots of information. but I think that information is to our benefit. So thank you, and thank you to your staff for the work they put in on them. Okay, let's go to the staff report to council on election 2020. Clerk, are you the
Yes, I am.
doer of the deed here?
Yes, council has all received the report. I think the big takeaway, and I'll just take any chance I get to bring this up, is that the town of Mahone Bay, even without a mayoral election, had the third highest voter turnout in the province for a 70.3% voter participation rate.
Very good.
Everybody's had a chance to read that. As I said, I'll just take any opportunity I can to put that in there. But now that I've done that, does anybody have any questions?
How would you assess the cost of the election this year when we used the electronic services to other years?
We are still getting all of the bits and pieces and stuff in, but there is a lot, we didn't have to do the postage for all of the letters that went out, the voter information letters. We didn't have to do that printing. There's a lot of ballot materials that we didn't have to have. On the staff side, we used to have a deputy returning officer and a poll clerk for 3 different polls. So that was 2 teams of 3, but we actually only had to have 4 people this time. There are a lot of things like that we saved a lot of money, but I'm not sure. As I said, we don't have all the numbers in yet, so I can't give you a final analysis yet.
Okay. Any feedback from our citizens who we may have anticipated would have issues with changing the way that the voting was done?
Not really. We had the only issues we had, the technical issues we had, were things like there were a couple of people that the birthdays were in the system wrong. That happens all the time. That's the provincial federalist. It happens all the time. The only things that we had for an issue really this time with this format was that we had a couple of people comment that they were surprised at how fast the options went by for the telephone voting. But most of them, I believe, ended up casting their votes by phone anyway. They would speak with one of our election staff and just have a better sense of how to anticipate it, and it went pretty well. We heard a lot of people say, I was going to wait and I was going to come in, and because I didn't want to deal with that, and then I kept missing it. Oh, I missed the advance poll or whatever. So then they did it themselves. And I had so many conversations with people that said, it took me 1 minute. It literally took me 1 minute. So that was predominantly what we heard.
Okay, Councillor Carver.
Yes, is there going to be a chance, Maureen, to provide some feedback to Dean, whose name, the rest of his name I forget, about the any glitches that came up? I mean, I had a couple that I was aware of that I wanted to put forward somehow, but I wasn't quite sure what the method, what the channel would be.
Anything like that, just forward it to me, and I'll include that in my follow-up to IntelliVote. We had our provincial returning officer debrief today, and we certainly talked about some things that, in a perfect world, we would prefer if the system could do. And then in a perfect world, it would have been better if we had, this for this election, but there's certainly a lot of feedback. This was a very unusual year to have an election. Yeah. So if anybody has any feedback, please feel free to send it to me and I'll send it off to provincial or IntelliVote, wherever it should be.
Yeah, okay, thank you.
Anyone else? Thank you, Madam Clerk.
Your Worship, I believe the Deputy Mayor has a question.
Oh, he does. I keep missing him.
No, next time I'll shout. It's okay. It's not a
Way down the
question.
bottom of the page.
I just wanted to point out in the report, I found it quite interesting to note that folks who are 99 and above exclusively used the internet. And so and then even looking at the method of voting by age, the myth that folks who are older do not like the internet. So for me, it was busted there. So hopefully, as we go forward, this is something that we'll be thinking about, and from my perspective, it's a necessity going forward. Hopefully, that's what the community also feels.
Okay. Alice?
Yeah, I think it's a real, hi. I think it's a really great accessibility feature for sure for people of all ages. And I mainly got really good feedback. There were a couple of little issues that were dealt with pretty quickly. But yeah, I was also really impressed by that turnout in the upper reaches there for sure. And there's always that thing with the younger people too that I find interesting, where that was actually where the least. It looked like that's where the fewest people voted actually. So anyway, I'm on board for that type of voting again.
Yeah, it was people in their 20s that were the lowest turnout for voter participation. One thing that I did not anticipate when we looked at this was the great statistics that we would have when we look forward to how to do this again. So obviously staff made the recommendation that we go this way, thinking about the ongoing pandemic. But then certainly we've heard many things over the years about the increased accessibility with alternative voting. And you know, the day, October 17th, on election day, the roads were terrible. I was driving back and forth to pick up printers and that kind of thing. The driving was awful, which meant walking was awful. So anybody with any mobility or transportation issues, that only would have been increased. The COVID cases were already on the upswing across the country. This was exactly what we had been trying to prepare for. But then, as you say, we had great participation, but now we can take this and we can say, where are the 20-year-olds? How do we reach the people in their 20s? And how do we reach the men? Because we had a much higher participation rate with women. Where are the men? So we can look at that sort of thing and look at that for future elections.
Councilor Carver.
But how does that percentage who identified as female compare to the population distribution of male female in the community? It might,
absolutely.
Yeah, it might be accurate. Can I ask a question there about that in that same paragraph? I can't quite follow this. So people identified as female, and then it says, and the highest age rate for voter participation was in the 99 plus range at 100% voter participation. So 99 plus, what?
People that were 99 years of age or older. There are five people on the Town of Mahone Bay list of electors who are 99 years of age or older, and all five of those people voted.
I see. So the highest age range for voter participation, okay, that was 100% in that age range. Okay. Wow.
Right?
Yeah.
So it's one of the challenges of small statistical samples that, yeah, sometimes you have to reach for interpretation. But what I would say about, the youth vote or new voters, people in their late teen, 19, 20, 21, what we saw, I think, in large part was a decoupling of where the PIN numbers went compared to where the students were. And this was, I think, I would have seen many examples enough to significantly impact that statistic, where the students are away, but the pins are at home. And because the pins aren't dynamic and follow people around via texts, or you can't forward it via email, you really, that happened, at least half a dozen times that I'm aware of, where PIN numbers just over the 6 or 8 weeks just couldn't be found for somebody voting remotely. So I'm sure in due course, over the next 4 years or 8 years, those PINs will be dynamically delivered, via email, and then that will solve that problem.
That is by far the most common question that I answered with questions from electors is I lost my PIN number. You know, my husband voted and he shredded the letter, but my letter was attached to the back. You know, I had it here somewhere. You know,
Hey, we've all been there when we didn't want to open that official government letter. It's like
all the time.
There's nothing in that letter that is going to improve my life, so I'm going to forget it's even here.
Well, I'll tell you, in the provincial election, I was wild because I didn't get my enumerator card. And when I was moving things around to work out of here, I found that enumerator card. So, you know, I'm no one to judge.
Thank you. Anyone else? Okay. Let's go to item number 7, council committee appointments. You have a document that came out from the clerk this afternoon. And her message was that that in fact the appointments to boards and committees is on the agenda for this evening's meeting. And you then received a list that I had provided to the clerk, and she shared that list with you, members of the council. And it was provided for your information in advance of tonight's meeting. If you have some concerns or issues around some of the appointments or some changes you might want to see made that we could maybe broker with other members of council, I would ask you to either give me a call or send an email. You can send it to myself and to the CAO tomorrow or Friday, and we'll see if we can make those adjustments. It is quite a daunting list, but council does participate in quite a number of committees and boards, and involves activities with provincial government, other municipal governments around the province, and in particular in Lunenburg County. Any general comments about the committee or board appointments? Deputy Mayor?
I'm grateful to have received the list and the, I guess I'll call them tentative appointments. I am a little bit not very happy with the process, if I can put it that way. It was not clear to me when we had the conversations at orientation that this was the process that would be taken. I thought that we had time to look at them and maybe have a discussion before a list came out. So now it becomes a bit difficult with the list already put out there to sort of say, well, I don't want to be on that list. This was my interest. I thought it would be a case of we express the interest and then there will be a period of getting to some sort of consensus. So I don't know, there's no opportunity to walk this back, but my hope is that there's space to move things around, because some of the committees in here that I might be very passionate about, I'm not on them, and so that makes me uncomfortable to a certain extent. Just trying to put it out there.
Well, these suggestions that you have on the paper here are just that. They are not cast in stone. That's what I'm asking you to do now, is to let me know which appointments. What you've got here is a balance of the new members of council and the old members of council trying to take advantage of their experience and to immerse the 3 new councilors in the committee structure and the different activities that are there. You're quite right. You may not always have appointments to things that you're passionate about, but all these issues need to be addressed nevertheless. And that is why I would ask you now to consider these And if you have concerns or issues or preferences, then direct them back to myself and the CAO, and we'll look at how we might be able to broker the changes. Okay? Councillor Carver had a comment.
Yeah, well, it's a sort of a question. So in terms of the process, there's no conversation about it amongst the councillors. It's all information filtering into the mayor and CAO, and they make the decisions. Is that?
Would you like to have the discussion among the councillors? CAO? No, you've got your hand up. Did you have a comment, CAO?
Yes, thank you. Sorry. Yeah, I wanted to interject because I'm a bit concerned. I think Deputy Mayor did a good job of putting out that these were, preliminary. What we have here in front of us really is, as the mayor said, a list for council's discussion. Between now and council's next orientation session, which precedes council's meeting on the 26th, I think there is an opportunity for councillors to take a look at this list and have some discussions with Mayor Davini, and then amongst each other during the orientation process, and to talk about committees as we talked about previously. We'll have that opportunity. The rush, unfortunately, is with respect to a couple of the external commissions. So a suggestion of mine might be that while we have meetings of our advisory committee scheduled to take place between now and the 26th, which is council's next regular meeting, some of the advisory committees would have a regularly scheduled meeting. Those are very much at council's discretion, those advisory committees. So if council members would like the time, and I think appropriately, to discuss that, it's certainly quite reasonable for council not to proceed with advisory committee meetings in the meantime, and therefore to spare the need to do any formal commitment tonight. And those can always be revisited as well if you do appointments tonight. I mostly wanted to, I guess, stress, and it is an unfortunate condition of the turnover of council, the area and the Municipal Joint Services Board, and to a lesser extension, the Joint Accessibility Committee, do have regular meetings that are coming up, and the town has a responsibility to have some members appointed. So if I could ask, maybe we could look specifically at a few of these tonight. But I certainly wouldn't want council to feel obligated to appoint members of advisory committees that do meet at discretion of council.
Okay. Do you want to go through the list, council, and see if the appointments that are there are acceptable at this point? As the CAO suggested, the MJSB, the area board, and the accessibility are areas where they will be meeting in November, and we are required to have people participate in them. Councillor Carver.
The Lunenburg County Senior Safety Partnership Society has meetings scheduled in November. 2 meetings, one this week and one on November 25th. For the sake of continuity, I think it's important that I continue with that appointment. And if I can speak more about it.
Other comments? Can we look at area? Deputy Mayor?
So my assumption is that right now we're just looking at the external appointments, and then we will get a chance to look at the advisory committees at a later date. Is that the case? Just wanting to confirm that.
I think that's what we're saying here.
Okay.
CAO is suggesting we look at the ones that are going to meet in the next few weeks and require people to be in attendance. Councillor Burdick?
As to what Penny was saying, I would be okay with that, because I think you were just I was just appointed for that in this document, and that to me does make sense if there's a meeting this week and in the next couple of weeks. So,
okay,
just saying.
So you'll stand down from that one and
I
Councilor
would.
Carver pick it up?
Yes, I would for the sake of continuity.
Okay,
Thank you, Alison. And we're in the middle of some projects as well. So, and I've been chairing that board. So it's, at the moment, we need the transition, and I love that you're interested. So that
okay.
we can work on that.
Thank you, Penny. Thank you, Alice. Area Board, myself, Councillor Wilson, and Councillor Feeney is his alternate. Or our alternate to the board. Are we okay with that one? Okay. MJSB, myself, Councillor Now, and Councillor Feeney. That's another group that's in a state of flux. Councillor Now and Feeney, are you comfortable with that to continue?
Amen.
Okay. Accessibility CAO, you mentioned that one. You're the policy advisor to that group, aren't you?
Yes, yeah, I'm always there. And we've had two counselors, but we only technically have one seat. So there's a seat and an alternate. And currently Councillor Feeney's held the seat and Councillor Carver's been the alternate. Certainly can continue with that, or they might want to switch based on whether Councillor Feeney's got other things coming up here that, you know, he's looking at. So it's really a discussion between the two of you. I think it would be a good idea, unless you're both very disinterested in continuing, if one of you stays on as the regular member because you have some continuity, and then potentially we can look at another alternate. But I just need a regular member if we are, I believe, going to meet in this month.
I think Councillor Feeney, we had agreed with that approach.
Sure, I mean, that'd be fine, Mayor. I think the accessibility committee will time out at some point midterm. So I think there is a natural evolution of that committee, which is really focused on supporting the municipalities step up and dealing with the implementation of the new legislation. So I think it'll evolve into something new in due course. I'm not sure, Councillor Carver, if you'd agree with that. I think that committee will evolve, I guess, probably 18 months from now. So until this project gets over the goal line, I think that I'm happy to participate in, or support Councillor Carver, or vice versa. I think it's been I think it's an important initiative to see get over the goal line.
Okay. So Councillor Carver, you're going to be our representative to the Accessibility Committee? You're on mute, Councillor.
Yes, I'm interested to know if there's any of the other new people who are interested in that one.
Well, we did have a deputy mayor down as an alternate, only trying to bring some focus and recognition to the accessibility issue, and the deputy mayor's position being key in the town's organization, that it would enable him to come up to speed on the whole program. Deputy Mayor, are you?
Yeah, but I don't have an issue being an alternate. I just need to understand fully what being an alternate means.
Fair enough. So what do they say? Sometimes you have an opinion and sometimes you have a vote.
The alternate steps in as necessary behind the regular member, but it also gets you on the mailing list. So the information that's coming out to the members of the group, the committee, you'll get all the same information, and you'll be able to have informed discussions with, in this case, Councillor Carver, should the situation arise that she is unable to participate and you would represent the town at the group.
Yeah.
But it's not something you go to as an alternate every time we have a meeting.
Actually, I did to many meetings. Joe and I both went. I mean, I was just going for information, and I would speak in the meetings, but we agreed that I wouldn't have a vote.
Yeah.
So
That's up to the deputy mayor, the same as it was up to you.
Yeah.
If he chooses to participate as a non-voting member, deputy mayor?
Yeah, I'm good with being an alternate. I'll have to figure out and see when the meetings are and whether I'm available. And I think if I'm getting all the information, then I'm glad to work with Penny on that.
Okay. That brings us down to the Joint Transportation Committee.
Well,
Councillor Burdick and Councillor Feeney.
Mr. Mayor, we can continue to go through these, but I don't know if any of the others are going to be meeting in the immediate term. So I guess it's at council's discretion. If I got the 4 that I know we needed. And you can go through the rest of the list if you would like to. There is a Region 6 meeting on the 27th, for example. So we will have another council meeting before that, but if somebody.
And Councillor Now has agreed to take the Region 6.
Can I put Councillor Now down and we'll get that done now as well?
Bailiwick. Okay.
Mr. Mayor, the Remo meeting that's scheduled for Monday, has that been canceled? I saw something
Yes,
today.
it has. Message came out today, actually.
Yeah, I saw the headline said canceled, but then there was nothing in the body of the message, so.
It's okay. I had it on my calendar for yesterday, so.
Yeah.
Yeah, and the Remo was another one, Deputy Mayor, because of the import to the community of that emergency management piece. Again, as the alternate, you're on the mailing list, you're getting the information, you'll be able to be involved in the discussions. And if you would choose to go to the meeting, you can do that. Do you have a question, Deputy Mayor?
I just wanted to clarify. So once we're done with this, will we have a scheduled time? I think Dylan had said at the next orientation meeting to have a full discussion around all the other committees. Is that what we've decided or agreed on?
I think CAO, the plan is that we will review in particular, the advisory committees to council. The ongoing relevance of them, the ongoing structures of them, and there may be some new work to be added. There may be some existing work to be deleted, but that's a discussion that council will have together.
Yeah, that's certainly my recommendation. We have opportunities in the orientation process to have that discussion, and then when council's satisfied to proceed with some appointments and whether we change the terms of reference for any of the committees prior to doing that, council could do that on November 26th or December 8th at regular meetings that are coming up, and just hold off on putting in any other committee appointments in the meantime. So yeah, that's my recommendation. Obviously it's always council's discretion. So at the staff level, we just recommend, but I think from the sounds of it, that's the best way to proceed. And I do and can, and when council's ready, share the 5 committees, external committees that we've just talked about on the screen, and maybe somebody can make a motion on just those ones so they can be official tonight.
Councillor Feeney.
Mayor, just one point of clarification. So for citizens in the community who participate on committees, when do those terms roll over?
CAO?
Yeah, so that's part of the timing here. We would re-advertise in December. So we'll be able to time those advertisements and the appointment of new councillors. So if we're not re-advertising for a committee, or if we're re-advertising on any different basis for committees, then we'll have the conversation first, and then we'll put out the advertisements. We'll get councillors appointed, and then we'll appoint the public member.
Okay, fair enough. December. Okay.
Yeah, and the public member appointment takes place in January after we get all the,
So Mr. Hyde, what are the 5 committees in particular that you are concerned about?
Sure, thank you. I just wrote down these notes as we were going along. So hopefully I've got this correct. Can you all see just the white piece of paper here with, with the 5 committees?
Yeah.
So we've got senior safety, Councillor Carver continuing, area board, Mayor Davini, Councillor Wilson with Councillor Feeney as an alternate, MJSB, Mayor Davini, Councillor Now, Councillor Feeney, joint accessibility, Councillor Carver with Deputy Mayor Kangata as an alternate, and Region 6, Councillor Now.
Okay. So we would entertain a motion to approve those appointments. Moved by Councillor Wilson. Do we have a seconder? Councillor Now, moved and seconded on the question. All in favor? The motion is carried. So the appointments to those 5 committees are done. And I would,
Mayor, may I ask a question? Just
Yes.
information. What is the RELC sharing committee?
Happy to say, so that stands for the Riverport Electric Committee or Electric Light Commission, and the
I
sharing
knew that.
committee is our cooperative committee that we have between the town's electric utility and Riverport.
I knew that. Thank you.
But Carl's been outgoing deputy mayor, has been handling that file. So yeah, it's a bit of shoes to fill, and certainly appreciate both on that front and on the area front if Councillor Wilson is going to be putting the time in there, and those are pretty busy. The RELC committee won't be meeting, but we do have pretty regular conversations with Riverport, and I certainly will appreciate having a councillor on that to replace Carl.
okay. Anything else? All right. In the meantime, if there are any of the issues that you find disconcerting, please don't hesitate to let us know. And there will be an opportunity between now, I think you had suggested in our meeting on the 26th, CAO, that council will have the opportunity to discuss the committees further.
Yes, absolutely. And the 26th isn't going to be a hard deadline either. If council continues those discussions and wants to see some draft terms of reference or anything else, then there's a meeting in December, and we'll just work around council.
Okay. Committee appointments. There's no committee reports that I have. New business. Anyone have any new business they'd like to raise? Clerk, perhaps for the benefit of the new councilors, if you'd like maybe just to touch on the notion of that new business piece.
Certainly, Your Worship. So under the council policy that everyone's had a chance to receive, I don't know how much you've had a chance to really take it in with all of the information coming in, but under the approval of the agenda, if someone has something that they would like to add to the agenda, that can be put forward to be added to the agenda under the approval of the agenda. If it is a new business item, council cannot make a motion on that. You could make a notice of motion or just say you'd like to have discussion, and that discussion may lead to, we'll bring it on, we'll put it on the next agenda. If there is a time sensitive issue, councilors do, pardon me, all members of council, sorry, Your Worship, have the opportunity to say, I would like this to be considered as a time sensitive issue requiring council, potentially requiring council action.
Okay. All right. Anything else anyone would like to mention or raise? Councillor Burdick.
Thank you. I would like to, not quite sure how to word this, but propose that we look at the terms of reference for citizen members on council. as I guess I also at the same time looking at the terms of reference for counselors too, as in particular as it code of conduct sort of issues. There were some things that came up in the election that made me wonder if some of those terms are worth taking a look at and maybe further refining. It's a little bit vague, but I would like those to be reviewed or propose that.
Okay. Okay. Deputy Mayor?
To a certain extent, just building on what Alice was saying, we had talked, I think, by email. There was a little bit of a back and forth around how do we find space, either in council meetings or alternatively, to discuss what folks had from the community. We've not really addressed that in I guess in a way that's clear to me. I'm hoping that we can find a clear path where we can have a good discussion as to what folks raised and see how we can prioritize some of the things that they raised from that side of things. And then talking about, I think, council policy and just how, I guess, council meetings are conducted. I think there's an aspect there that I would love to see a change in terms of how members of the community engage with council, at what point they participate in a council meeting, if that's or not, if that makes sense. So if maybe in the next agenda or at some point, I'd want us to discuss that.
CAO, I know we've talked about gathering the issues that candidates may have encountered on the doorsteps. Do you have a plan that you're at this point?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's great to obviously hear this from the new counselors, and that's exactly the kind of thing we want to cover. Everybody has recently received the council policy and the committee's policy, and there's a fair bit to take in, and obviously we're happy to answer specific questions. But as we go forward with the orientation, there is a session upcoming where, you know, we're certainly going to go into that with council. And it is really important to note that those two policies are intended very much to be, you know, living documents that reflect the will of the council and, you know, the way that the council wishes to conduct itself and what they're looking for out of interactions with residents through committees and that, you know, so that absolutely is part of the orientation. And then beyond orientation, we'll end up on the agenda of council as we go forward here. One of the key things, I think, with respect to what you heard on the doorstep conversation is to connect that and the opportunity of an election with the strategic planning cycle, so that council is able to really ensure that priorities get reflected in policy and then in budgets and in our business planning. And the cycle and those connections and how council can really influence that, and you know, those are really your levers of power at the highest level, is all part of the upcoming orientation, future direction setting, and some of the other orientation activities. So I'm very glad to hear it. I think we have a lot planned in that direction, and probably it will be a process between now and February to go from orientation into strategic planning, and for this council to really have a handle on how you put those priorities front and center for the next 4 years. So we're really looking forward to that, and I think that you will see it. And obviously, if you're not seeing it to your satisfaction, let me know, and we'll make sure that that we do.
Okay, Councillor Carver.
Thanks. I'm glad that Francis got back to that issue. It was I who had raised it initially, and I'm a little bit concerned that by getting it into the formal strategic planning process somewhere down the road, we lose the freshness of the ideas. I mean, it already feels like they're disappearing from my consciousness. Is there some way that we could now begin sharing those ideas in written form by just sort of starting a compilation of themes and ideas that came up?
Yeah, like I noted, there's an agenda item intended on the 25th as part of council's orientation, sorry, 24th as part of council's orientation session. But in the meantime, between now and the 24th, I think it's a great activity. I mean, Maureen will obviously send out the agenda and get people thinking about what's on there for that session. But if people want to share thoughts by email that they might have had, that's certainly council's prerogative to do. I think one of the key things in terms of wanting to balance people getting those ideas out there and also having a good understanding, common shared understanding of where the town is at the current time and where we're coming from and how the processes fit together is important. So, balancing that 2 weeks from the swearing in, we didn't want to wait long. So hopefully that works out for everyone. But yeah, do feel free to share ideas by email at any time.
Okay. Councillor Carver, are you looking puzzled?
Oh, no, that's just my thinking look.
Okay. Anyone else? Well, that brings us to the end of our agenda. And it brings us to the end of our first council meeting. Day one, night one, hour one. If you look back, if I look back and I look at what council's accomplished, the solar garden piece is coming at us very quickly. We had the sod turning for a new fire hall a few weeks ago. The sod turning for the new nursing home is going to take place late November, possibly the first week of December. Over time, council, in watching out for the best interest of the town as a whole, not just a small or a group of citizens, is why we have the water treatment system. A lot of opposition to that. The sewage treatment system, even more opposition to that. The work that's been done with a variety of consultants around the foreshore, the harbor rising tide problems, the things that are going on in Mahone Bay today, and they're on the doorstep for the next 4 years. We're getting 8 electric car chargers coming in the spring. There's been talk of trialing an electric vehicle in the near future. We're going to exceed the targets the province has given us for solar power with the solar garden that is planned. And there's other things on the horizon that will continue to make Mahone Bay very much a forward thinking town with a council that looks out for the citizens. I'm looking forward to the next 4 years. I'm looking forward to working with the 6 of you and continuing to work with the CAO and the clerk and staff. That was a huge change in the life of council between 2016 and 2020. I anticipate similar changes will come, and we'll deal with them together. On that note, I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
So move.
By Councillor Carver, seconded by Councillor Wilson. All in favor? We